It's official. Caitlin Clark will not be returning this season, and I've got some serious things to say about how the Indiana Fever handled this entire situation. After weeks of day-to-day updates and false hope, they finally came clean, but not before they milked every last ticket sale they could. But here's what really has me fired up. The contradictions in their statements prove they've been playing games with the fans' emotions, and I've got the receipts to prove it. Just hours ago, Caitlin Clark released a statement that ended all speculation about her return this season. In her own words, "I had hoped to share a better update, but I will not be returning to play this season. I spent hours in the gym every day with the singular goal of getting back out there." But here's what gets me. This announcement didn't come as a surprise to anyone who's been paying attention. Clark has been sidelined since suffering a right groin injury during the Fever's 87-77 win over the Connecticut Sun on July 15, and she also suffered a bone bruise at a later date during her recovery process. That means she's been out for nearly 2 months, and yet the organization continued to string fans along with vague updates about her progress. This wasn't transparency. This was a calculated marketing strategy to keep hope alive and tickets selling. The most frustrating part of Clark's statement was when she said, "Disappointed isn't a big enough word to describe how I feel." You know who else is disappointed? The thousands of fans who bought tickets expecting to see their superstar play, only to be led on by an organization more concerned with revenue than honesty. Clark has now missed 19 consecutive games, and throughout this entire ordeal, we've been fed the same day-to-day nonsense that anyone with half a brain could see through. The 2024 Rookie of the Year deserved better from her own organization, and the fans definitely deserved better. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. Stephanie White's handling of this situation has been absolutely atrocious. Just 3 days ago, White told reporters that Clark had been limited to shooting drills and individual work, yet we've seen footage of Clark doing full-court running drills and participating in team activities. So which is it, Stephanie? Is she limited to shooting drills, or is she participating in more intensive activities? You can't have it both ways, and the fans deserve consistent, honest communication about their franchise player. But here's where it gets really interesting. In recent interviews, White kept saying they were evaluating Clark's status and would have direction soon. Evaluating what? If she's been out for 2 months with a groin injury that also developed into a bone bruise, what exactly needed further evaluation? The answer is simple. They were buying time to maximize ticket sales for the final stretch of games. They knew Clark wasn't coming back, but admitting that would have meant empty seats and lost revenue. So instead, they played word games and kept hope alive artificially. White's comments about long-term health and wellness being the most important thing were the biggest tell. When a coach starts talking about long-term health instead of immediate return possibilities, you know the season is over. But instead of being direct with the fan base, they chose to be vague and misleading. This kind of communication failure doesn't just hurt the fan base, it damages the credibility of the entire organization. How are players supposed to trust management when they can't even be straight with the people who support the team? Let's call this what it is. The Indiana Fever front office has been playing a shell game with their fans' emotions and wallets. Recent medical evaluations confirmed that no additional injuries or damage were discovered, yet they still couldn't give fans a straight answer about her availability. Here's my theory on what really happened. The medical team knew weeks ago that Clark wouldn't be back this season. The groin injury, combined with the bone bruise, created a situation where rushing her back could have caused long-term damage to their franchise cornerstone. But instead of being transparent with this information, the front office made a business decision to keep the possibility alive in fans' minds. Every day-to-day update, every mention of evaluating her progress, every hint that she might return, it was all designed to keep ticket sales flowing. Think about it logically. Clark never missed a game during 4 years at the University of Iowa or during her rookie WNBA season in 2024, but 3 separate injuries have sidelined the Indiana Fever guard for 25 regular season games this summer. This isn't a player who sits out games unnecessarily. When Clark is out this long, there's a serious problem. The fact that it took public pressure and critical coverage to finally get a straight answer proves that transparency was never their priority. They were forced into honesty, not led by it. Now let's talk about the brutal reality facing the Indiana Fever. Without Caitlin Clark, this team has been barely treading water, and their playoff positioning is precarious at best. The Fever, who sit in 7th place, are just 1.5 games ahead of the 9th place Los Angeles Sparks in the crowded bottom half of the standings. That margin is razor thin, and with Clark officially ruled out, other teams know they're facing a severely depleted Indiana squad. Every remaining game becomes exponentially harder when opponents can game plan without having to account for your best player. But here's what really concerns me about this team's playoff chances. They've shown no ability to consistently execute without Clark on the floor. The offensive system falls apart, the defensive intensity wavers, and they look like a completely different team. Against quality opponents, this Indiana team has struggled mightily. They've had some good individual performances, particularly from players like Lexie Hull, but good individual performances don't win playoff series. You need systematic excellence, and that's been missing all season. The Western Conference is loaded with talent, and Indiana would be facing teams that have been building chemistry and momentum while the Fever have been dealing with injury uncertainty. That's not a recipe for postseason success. Even if they manage to secure a playoff spot, what's the realistic expectation? A first-round exit? Maybe they steal a game or two if everything goes perfectly, but championship aspirations are completely out the window now. Through all of this organizational chaos and disappointing injury news, there's been one player who has consistently stepped up and delivered, Lexie Hull. While everyone's been focused on the Clark drama, Hull has been quietly putting together the kind of season that deserves serious recognition and financial compensation. Hull's performance this season has been nothing short of remarkable. She's shooting efficiently, making clutch plays in crucial moments, and showing the kind of leadership qualities that championship teams are built around. When the game is on the line, Hull consistently makes winning plays. What separates Hull from other role players is her basketball IQ and clutch gene. She doesn't just put up empty stats, she makes the right play at the right time. Whether it's a crucial steal, a timely three-pointer, or just solid fundamental basketball, Hull delivers when it matters most. The front office needs to recognize what they have in Hull and lock her up with a substantial contract extension immediately. If they don't, some other organization is going to offer her the money and respect she deserves, and Indiana will lose another valuable piece. Hull has proven she can be a cornerstone player in this league. While other players might disappear under pressure, Hull seems to thrive in big moments. That's the kind of mentality you build winning cultures around. The fact that Hull has continued to perform at this level while dealing with all the uncertainty surrounding Clark shows incredible professionalism and dedication. She's earned every dollar of a max deal, and the organization would be foolish not to make that investment. This whole situation represents a much larger problem with how the Indiana Fever operates as an organization. The lack of transparency, the misleading injury updates, and the apparent prioritization of ticket sales over honest communication, these are institutional problems that go beyond just this season. When fans can't trust what their organization is telling them, it damages the relationship between the team and its supporters. How many season ticket holders feel misled right now? How many people bought tickets to games specifically hoping to see Clark return, only to realize they were being strung along? This isn't just bad public relations, it's bad business. Trust, once broken, is incredibly difficult to rebuild. The Fever have created a situation where fans will be skeptical of future injury updates and organizational communications. The coaching staff, particularly Stephanie White, needs to take responsibility for the confusing and contradictory messaging. Professional organizations have clear communication protocols, and those protocols clearly weren't followed here. Moving forward, this organization needs to implement better communication standards. Fans deserve honest, consistent updates about their player's health status. If a player is unlikely to return, say that. If the timeline is uncertain, explain why. Don't leave people guessing while you try to protect ticket sales. The Indiana Fever are at a crossroads. They can either learn from this organizational failure and implement the changes necessary to rebuild trust, or they can continue with business as usual and watch their fan base lose confidence in the franchise. First, they need to establish clear communication protocols for injury updates. No more day-to-day nonsense when everyone knows the situation is more serious. Give fans honest assessments, even if the news isn't what they want to hear. Second, they need to evaluate whether the current coaching staff can handle the pressure and responsibility that comes with managing a franchise player. The contradictory statements and unclear messaging suggest there are competency issues that need to be addressed. Third, they need to invest in the players who have shown loyalty and production during this difficult season. Lexie Hall deserves a significant contract extension, and other contributors need to be properly compensated for stepping up when the team needed them most. Fourth, the front office needs to develop better contingency plans for when star players are unavailable. This season has exposed how dependent they are on Clark, and that's not sustainable for a professional organization. Finally, they need to rebuild trust with their fan base through consistent actions, not just words. That means better communication, more transparent business practices, and a genuine commitment to putting the fans' experience ahead of short-term revenue considerations. Look, I understand that injuries are part of professional sports, and nobody wanted to see Caitlin Clark sidelined for the season, but the way this organization handled the situation was unprofessional and disrespectful to the fans who support this team through good times and bad. Clark, a two-time All-Star and the 2024 WNBA Rookie of the Year, deserved better from her own organization. The fans deserved better. And frankly, players like Lexie Hall, who have been carrying this team, deserved better support and recognition. The remaining games of this season are essentially meaningless now in terms of championship aspirations. This becomes about evaluating talent, building for next year, and hopefully implementing the organizational changes necessary to prevent this kind of communication disaster from happening again. Can they still make the playoffs? Possibly. Will it matter if they do? Probably not, beyond giving some players valuable postseason experience. But the real work starts in the off-season, when this organization needs to take a long, hard look at how they operate and what changes are necessary. The silver lining in all of this is that players like Lexie Hall have shown they can step up and perform under pressure. That's valuable moving forward, and it gives fans something to build on for next season. But make no mistake, this was an organizational failure on multiple levels, and accountability needs to happen from top to bottom. The fans deserve better, the players deserve better, and Caitlin Clark deserved better. The question now is whether the Indiana Fever can learn from these mistakes and build something better, or if this is just the beginning of larger problems for this franchise.